Very good.
All right.
Reset page. Oh yes, I have to remember how to start it. Here we go. So this is looking at science. No, this is how it starts. Looking at science, take one.
I love it.
Here we go. Welcome to Looking at Science. My name is Sue Wright, and today I am interviewing Dr. Carl Werner, a scientist who's going to share a life-changing story sparked by a challenge from a fellow classmate in his sophomore year of college. Dr. Werner is a retired emergency medicine specialist in Missouri and has over 38 years of experience in the medical field. He graduated from University Medical College of Kansas City in 1983, received his undergraduate degree in biology with distinction at the University of Missouri, graduating summa cum laude, and he received his doctoral degree in medicine at the age of 23. You'll have to explain that later on. That's crazy. And he practiced family medicine in St. Louis. He, along with his wife, Debbie, traveled to 9 countries on 4 continents to visit museums and fossil dig sites and to interview fossil experts, to author Evolution, The Grand Experiment, Volume 1, and Living Fossils, along with their accompanying DVDs. So welcome, Dr. Werner.
Oh, it's great to be with you, and thank you for doing this interview.
Great. Now, my first question right out of the gate is, how did you earn a doctorate in medicine by age 23? I did a little research, and the earliest age suggested to achieve this with lots of work and no gaps in your education is 26. So how did you accomplish this by age 23?
Well, my state has this medical school that's based on the European model. Instead of going 4 years undergraduate and 4 years of medical school, but off all those 8 summers, you just go 6 years all year round, same amount of time. And instead of going 4 years of pre-med and not knowing if you're going to be accepted, you're accepted right out of high school. So when you get there at age 18, you're seeing patients and you're doing your undergraduate degree at the same time. It was a great experience. And there are other schools like this,
Right.
but all my classmates on my first year were 18 years old also. It wasn't unusual there. That was the norm, you know.
Wow, you must grow up pretty fast.
Yeah, no, it was a great experience. And I knew I had been given a gift, and I grabbed it as strongly as I could, because I knew that, you know, if not this, what else am I going to do, you know? So,
Right.
so I really thought it was a great program.
Awesome. Well, I think it's fair to say then, with your credentials, that you are a real scientist. And yet you hold to a position which scientists would claim no real scientist could believe, that the theory of evolution, as popularized by Charles Darwin, isn't true. In fact, you've given talks with titles such as Why I Abandoned Evolution and The Failure of Modern Geology. So before we talk more about why you abandoned evolution and what the failure of modern geology is, I want to talk about faith. Not faith as in science versus religion, but faith as it applies to science. Because a common belief about science and scientists is that it's all about fact and objectivity. And yet I think it's fair to say that there is a lot of faith involved in science. There's faith in the integrity of the scientists, faith in the accuracy of the equipment, faith in the accurate recording of results, faith in the veracity of what other scientists claim, faith in the accuracy and honesty of reporting of results, and faith how the media reports those findings. So would you agree, Dr. Werner, that there's a lot of faith involved in science?
Yeah, if you talk to scientists or physicians, they're jaded. They know that they've had so many BS stories told them that they've had to wade through over the years to find out it's not true. And most scientists do not believe other scientists at their word. The public does,
Mhm.
but scientists don't believe scientists. You have to really make your case, and it has to be then reproduced by another scientist. It's a lot of scrutiny, and that's from a lot of bad experiences in the past that you've walked through, and so you don't want to ever happen to you again, and you start getting more and more, I don't know, careful. Let's just say that. So yeah, I agree with you that people tend to have faith in scientists like a religion. Oh, well, the science is right, because it's science. But what does that mean? You're saying, what is science, and where does the science come from? Does it come from experts and scientists that never make a mistake, never make a wrong presupposition? Yes, it does have to wade through all that. So it's really best to be, a doubting Thomas about science, all aspects of science. If they prove it right, fine. If they don't prove it right, then you've just saved yourself a lot of grief.
Right. So why do you think people are so willing, people in general, to accept what science and the media report on a topic, which, as you say, should be closely scrutinized and debated? No one has ever seen how the universe began or how life began, how one kind of plant or animal could evolve into a completely different kind. And yet the public is so willing to believe it. Why do you think that is?
I really have to fault the reporters, the science reporters at the New York Times, at Newsweek, at Time Magazine, at National Geographic. They have faith in the scientists' stories, and they do not seek out a second opinion, a third opinion, an opposing opinion, and place that in each of these articles. They just more or less say, this is true because this scientist says this is true. And then you go through that for a few years, you realize, no, it wasn't true. And I do have to critique the news reporters. They're not doing a good job. Every story should have the other side, the most strongest argument against that scientist side by side in that article, but they don't. It's all kind of faith.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, they want to make it sensational headlines.
Oh yeah.
That's what sells.
And the scientists want to make it sensational because then they will get funding, they will get help, they will get recognition. So they pushing it, and the gullible reporters take it.
Right. Now, Dr. Werner, you have published 2 books and DVDs, which pretty much knock the socks off the theory of evolution as a reasonable hypothesis for how the universe and everything in it, including all life, how it began. And yet you didn't always believe what you have written.
No.
In fact, you have a story to share with us, which you've intriguingly titled The 25-Year Bet, which
Yep.
describes your journey from ardent evolutionist to, shall we say, ardent anti-evolutionist. So why don't you tell us all about it?
Well, to get into medical school, I had to show myself to have something unique. And so I entered into this research program as a sophomore, junior, senior in high school. I had my own animal lab at the university. I was doing experiments. This is, I wouldn't say sophisticated, but it was science. And I was accepted to medical school then with a 4-year all tuition science scholarship. I was Mr. Science. I guess you could say that's weird, that you had your own animal lab at age 16 at the university, but that was me. I didn't think anything of it. So when I got to medical school, I was quickly convinced that evolution and all the aspects of naturalism worked. I actually wanted to believe it because, I don't know, kind of abandoned God at that stage of my life. And yeah, so evolution's true. The professor said it was. The ideas that life started on its own from chemicals in the primordial soup. Yeah, because the professor said it was. And one day I was in second year in college. I guess I would be 19 years old. I was at Minsky Pizza Parlor with a classmate, another medical student, and he waited to the end of the dinner, after we finished the pizza, before he started asking. He only asked me 3 questions, and those 3 simple questions transformed my life, actually, because I don't know, I had a little pride that I knew science, and he posed these 3 questions that would challenge the natural origin of the universe, of life itself, and of species. I sat there dumbfounded, Sue. I was dumbfounded. I actually had no words to answer him, because I knew at the core they were correct, because he was quoting laws of science, the laws of thermodynamics and the law of mass action, things like that. And I was bothered by that. It's like, well, how could I have believed in evolution, the origin of the universe naturally through the Big Bang? How could I have believed this but never scrutinized it? Again, I guess I had faith in everybody that had taught me up to that point, including my news sources. And yet then I realized I got a lot of work to do here, because now I got this great dichotomy. I had all this evidence for evolution, the Big Bang, etc. And now I had, with these 3 questions, I had it all torn off. I had my arms torn off, basically. And it's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with all this evidence for evolution, but it set me on this process. I don't know how many years it's been now, 35 years or something, where I had to go investigate it myself. Excuse me. And it was a very slow process. I couldn't sort it out. It took lots and lots of book reading, and lot of interviews, lots of fossil photographing. But then after it started to, accelerate, when you get to about the 100,000th photograph of a fossil, my wife took 100,000 photographs. And when you've interviewed, your 100th scientist, and then you start to see patterns, and you say, no, it couldn't be that simple, could it? And so actually then I flipped completely. And now I feel like I could sit down with anybody at the university level. In fact, throw out an invitation. If anybody wants to have me to the university, you can bring in all your professors of physics, biochemistry, biology, anthropology, and I'll ask some questions, and I'll demonstrate to you that really this doesn't work, So the answer to this is, don't go out for pizza. When someone says, hey, you want to go get some pizza tonight at Minsky's Pizza Parlor? You say no, because this could cost me 35 more years of my life. I've been very careful not to take any dinner dates after that.
Now, are you going to share what those 3 questions were?
Yeah, they're a little bit heady, but let me just do them real quick. Carl, you believe in the natural origin of the universe? Yeah. And you believe that the universe formed naturally through the Big Bang? Yeah. Where would the matter, meaning atoms like hydrogen, helium, carbon, sulfur, those are the atoms. Where would the atoms come from? Because, Carl, the first law of thermodynamics says that matter, atoms, do not form from nothingness. So how could the universe have formed from nothingness if that would violate the laws of nature? Silence. I had no answer. There is no answer, and that's why it's a dead end right there. His second question was, Carl, you believe in that nature started itself. There was just a primordial soup, just chemicals on a lifeless earth, and that the primordial soup got cooked and acidified and electrified, and that the first living thing came out of it. Yeah, that's how life started. Well, what do you do with the law of mass action? And see, that's a little heady, but law of mass action just says that basically that these large molecules, these DNA, which a double helix, or these large chains called proteins, they don't form naturally. You can't form DNA by mixing chemicals under any circumstances ever. And same with the proteins, and same with the enzymes, and same with the cell membranes. So, Carl, if proteins, DNA, cell membranes, functional, don't form naturally, how would you start life naturally? How would you get around that? Silence. See, I was in biochemistry. I should have been able to answer that if it was valid.
Right.
And then his third question was, Carl, you believe in evolution, right? That one animal changed into another, like an ape changed into a human, or a dog-like animal changed into a whale, or a mouse kind of animal changed into a bat. Yeah. And he said, well, what do you think about the discrepancy in the fossil record? And I'm like, what are you talking about, that discrepancy of the fossil record? And he said at that time, that would have been, I don't know what year that would have been, 79. He said it was 200 million fossils have been collected. It's actually now 1 billion fossils have been
1
collected
billion.
with a B.
E.
That's in the museums,
Right.
And I'll update the question. 1 billion fossils have been collected, Carl. But why don't we see one animal changing into another animal throughout the fossil record? In other words, why do all the animal groups just show up?
Right.
Like the 7 invertebrate phyla, or the 6 invertebrate phyla, the main ones, and the vertebrates, why do they just show up? Why do fish just show up? And then why do just the different groups in there just show up? Why do seals just show up? Why do pterosaurs just show up? Why do bats just show up? With this great fossil record and thousands of animals in the individual groups, you should have thousands of the intermediates. Why don't you see them? He had me.
Right.
These were so eloquent questions, and I knew it. I knew that this was right, but I was in zombie land because I just could not put it all together. Well, how do you deal with everything else? I didn't know how to deal with all the other details, and that's the part that took me 35 years.
Wow. So were you trying to uphold your beliefs and prove him wrong, and in the process, your own mind was turned around?
Well, it's kind of weird. Science is always negative, not negative, but it's always the double negative. So, by the way, his last question was, I bet you can't prove evolution.
Ah. Right.
And in order to prove something, you have to then try to disprove it with all of your might. Come up with every possible scenario how to disprove it. It's called the null hypothesis. And if you can't disprove it, then it's temporarily still true, And so then I was forced to try to, with all my might, try to disprove the origin of life. Well, that was easy. All my might, try to disprove the origin of the universe. Well, that's pretty easy too. I didn't go into all the details. And then with all my might, try to disprove the fossil record. Well, that really took a lot of time, but it was kind of easy. I'll just say it was kind of easy. It could be done in 30 years in your lifetime if you had 30 years, but it was easy, it just took the time. And so I would say I was vacillating. I think, I know that guy's true. Those 3 questions are true. I knew I abandoned my parents' religion, and faith, and yet, shoot, I don't want to make a mistake on this. It's kind of an important question,
Right.
I don't want to be on the wrong side of this, the most important question. I was like, I don't know. I think he's right. I can't put it together. So it was kind of, moving slowly. At that point, I had a little bit of faith that evolution and naturalism didn't work, but I couldn't put it all together.
Well, you have an amazing story. So this idea that there is no such thing as a real scientist who doesn't believe in evolution simply isn't true. So do you have colleagues or know of other scientists who also question or reject evolution?
Oh my, there's, sorry, a dog something fell down there. Thousands, and I don't personally know thousands, but there's thousands and thousands of, really qualified scientists. My friend Dave Menton just passed away. He was from one of the Ivy League schools, and he made many discoveries. He didn't believe in evolution. You talk to the community college professors who are all PhDs, many of them don't believe in evolution. The people that believe in evolution at the universities also self-select. You can't come onto the university, staff unless you believe in evolution. So
Right.
it becomes like this self-serving thing. We believe in evolution. You got to believe in evolution, and only evolution is true because that's all the kind of people we have around us. But no, there are so many qualified scientists who don't believe in all these areas of naturalism.
Yes, and I can agree with that as well, because where I work at Creation Ministries International, we have all sorts of PhD scientists on staff from all sorts of disciplines, not only within the organization, but working with the worldwide company of PhD scientists who don't believe in evolution.
Yeah, and I've heard some of them speak, that fellow from Australia, and they're very smart people. And I only have a little niche. That's the only thing I know, and these guys know these other areas, and they're very qualified scientists.
They're brilliant, and they go to secular universities, the same universities that other scientists go to.
Yeah, yeah.
So your journey to winning that bet took you on another journey, which has resulted in the publishing of 2 books, with a 3rd one on the way. So can you describe the material that your books cover and a bit of your unique story of how you research the material for your books and DVDs?
Well, first of all, you have to have a very good wife.
And you
Because,
do.
and I have a wonderful wife. And seriously, I'd put this whole thing on Debbie because, I talked her into, first we went up to Chicago Field Museum to photograph the fossils there. And most wives would have said, okay, fine, I'll give you 20 minutes in the museum. But she went in the museum, we photographed and filmed for hours there. And then she said, Carl, all these fossils here are from this site here. Why don't we go out there? Which was in Wyoming. It's like, you're willing to do that? So I talked her into that we do this 1-year project to do the interviews and photograph the fossils. And then, 30 years later or whatever it is, we're still finishing it up. So I attribute it to her. And the way I wrote the book was how I like to learn. I don't like an author to tell me the final conclusion. I want to know what the facts are.
Mm-hmm.
I want to judge it for myself. Really, I do. I don't trust people, And I'm a visual learner. If you describe a fossil with words, I don't know, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really send me, but once you put a picture of a fossil in front of me, you don't even need to describe it. And you can see the comparison. So the books are all photographically opulent. Let's just say that, I don't know, 500 photographs or 1,000 photographs in some of these books. And the 2, well, I think there's 500 photographs in each of the 2 books. And then our upcoming books are each 1,000 photographs per book. So then I wrote it as I wanted to answer my questions. I just like, this is what I want to know. Where are the fossils and what do the scientists say about them? So I don't trust myself and I don't trust someone who doesn't believe in evolution. So I would interview the scientists who do believe in it, the top dog,
Right.
the whale expert, whale evolution expert. Okay, show me your fossils. He didn't know at the time that I was questioning evolution, but I said, just show me these fossils, these beautiful fossils you found. And as you start to talk to them, you realize, well, wait a minute, that was conjecture. I thought that whale tail on that like cat-like animal, you had found it. No, he didn't find the tail. That the good parts were all conjecture. So I brought in the experts, the guys that really know a lot. I respect all these scientists that I interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. They have such great knowledge. We might not agree at the end of the day on what the final conclusion is, but they are very smart people and have a lot of information that I needed. So it was the scientists, the photographs, and then just verifying by going to not just one scientist, but to go to 2, 3 per topic, and it just made a great little storybook, just, 5 pages per chapter. you read the story, did whales evolve from, a dog-like animal, or did they not, and then you just give the facts, let the scientists give their facts, show them the pictures, you're out of there. And at the end of each chapter, I just basically say, what do you think? To the audience that's reading it. I
Right.
didn't say, well, this is what it's so clear, can't you see it? No, I just say, well, what do you think? And if the facts are clear, they'll be able to answer that. If the facts are muddy, then maybe nobody has the answer, but generally people read my books and they're just like, whoa, the facts are very clear when you line them up, so.
And you got to go to places where the general public does not go.
Oh, baby, it's so fun. Honestly, to go to big sites that are active, where they're pulling the fossils out, and they're pulling them out. Because, by the way, we're filming this for a national television too. Besides the books, these are broadcast shows too.
Mhm.
So you're on camera and there's the diggers and they're pulling out a fossil and they open it up right in front of you and there's this gorgeous fish or whatever. That is a spectacular. Or to go to Chicago Field Museum and go down to the valley and see the shelves and shelves and shelves of, maybe 1 million fossils. And to go to, South Africa, to photograph the animals there. It was my joy. Lost a lot of money, but it was my joy. Don't anybody out there think that I made money on this project. This is a good way to lose money, but my money is to get the answer. That was very important to me, because what are you doing otherwise in your life if you got the wrong answer on this whole thing,
Right. You lost money, but you gained a whole lot.
Yeah, I got the pearl,
And I have a few details here about your research. You traveled over 160,000 miles, 9 countries, 4 continents. You have online footage at 60 natural history museums, 20 dig sites, interviews with 6 leading scientists, including Dr. John Johansson, who most of us have heard of, the discoverer of Lucy, National Geographic scientist Paul Sereno, and the late F. Clark Howell, and scores of other museum curators. You have been where many people have not been.
Yeah, no, it was great. And by the way, it was 60 scientists, and now it's 100. But
Okay, who's counting?
Yeah. No, what an honor to interview these guys, and they give you the time, and it was just a very fun experience. And being a scientist and wanting to scrutinize, this is like, really, I can ask my questions, beautiful,
Wonderful. Now, the second volume is called Living Fossils. What's that all about? What's a living fossil?
Well, I, as a science person, I wanted to come up with an experiment to test evolution. I know that sounds hokey, but really that's what I was trying to do, is like, how could you prove this one way or the other? And in my mind, I thought, you know what? If we were supposed to have evolved and all the animals were supposed to have evolved, then back then, and I decided that the back then would be during the dinosaur time, there would be, if evolution occurred, there wouldn't be modern animals, with the dinosaurs. You shouldn't find any,
Right.
And so I thought, well, that would be an experiment I could carry out as I went to all the museums, photograph all the fossils that they pulled out of their dig sites, the leaves, the invertebrates, the fish, the mammals, etc. And then say, I want to compare them to modern animals and see if any modern animals were found with the dinosaurs. Now, when I began that experiment, I knew it was zero, and I think most people would say, no, there weren't any modern animals. And it was a very slow process. You might pick up one here, one here, one here, one here. I'm wondering if you could pick up the book and show them one of the comparisons, the blue book, the Living Fossils book.
Living Fossils?
Yeah. and just show what we did. Once we found a fossil that was from the dinosaur era, then we'd see if there was a living organism that matched it.
How's
And
that one?
yeah, that the one that's the orange, back up just a little bit, that orange one, see there's the coral and then there's the fossil that matches. There's better ones in the book. Oh, and then here's the other coral on the left. But we went through that process of saying, is there any modern animals at this dig site, dinosaur dig site? And, you know, to my surprise, we found all of the major plant divisions, you know, like sassafras leaves and, you know, sequoias and oak trees next to the dinosaurs, which I had never heard. That had been kind of suppressed information from the museums. And then we found all of the 7 major animal phyla next to the dinosaurs. That would be like ducks next to the dinosaurs. Ducks? Did he say ducks? Did he say ducks?
You wouldn't see that in a museum display.
You know, and it was like, because I predicted if evolution wasn't true, you should find a duck next to a dinosaur. You should find a dog next to a dinosaur. I haven't found a dog. You should find something modern next to a dinosaur. And as we went and further, well, we found ducks and we found albatrosses and we found modern appearing starfish and modern appearing sharks and modern appearing, you know, just the list goes on. And that second book, the blue book, is just showing that basically representatives from all the animal groups were found with the dinosaurs. Now, we didn't find all
Right, there's some plants,
there you go.
some ferns.
By the way, each page is a buttload of work, you know, because
Yes.
first you got to get the picture of the fossil, then you got to see if there is a fern that matches it, and then you have to research it a little bit. But we didn't find all animals, and I wouldn't predict you would, but we did find a lot of modern animals next to the dinosaurs. When I thought there were none, there are hundreds and hundreds, enough to make me have a reasonable doubt that life was different during the time of the dinosaurs, you know. We found a hedgehog next to a dinosaur, found a duck, you know, duck-billed platypus, et cetera, et cetera. So it's enough to make you have concerns that maybe there is something more complicated or simple about the whole pattern, you know.
Right. Right. Now you answered, I think, one of the questions I was going to ask you, and that was that one of the features of your books was that you didn't bash evolutionists or the theory of evolution. You simply posited what evolutionists believe, and then you described the evidence, and then you gave an alternate interpretation of the evidence, and then you put it to the reader. What do you think? So that was a deliberate decision on your part to do it that way, because some readers,
yeah,
they're
they want to get the information and they don't want to be told what the answer is. You know, they want to figure this out based on the information, not because you believe one way or the other, you know. And so I just stayed away from it like the plague, giving my opinion. And one of the biggest compliments I had was some people read the book and is like, well, what do you believe? It's like, that we did it right then. If you can't tell after reading that whole book that what my position is, I think I did a good job, you know. And then, you know, I would ask them what they believed after finish reading the book, you know. But I just found it fascinating that you could almost, not everybody believed that I didn't show my hand, but some people thought I did not show my hand at all, you know.
right.
So that was kind of fun.
That's awesome. Your books, these books are beautiful. I mean, they could be coffee table books. They're well laid out. They're easy to follow for the layperson like me. And as I just showed a couple of samples, let's see, the photography, that's not photography. Let's see, let's find, the photography is just stunning. And all through here, it's
Could you pull the book further up? Yeah, there you go.
yeah, there we go. Okay.
Stop right there. Stop right there. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
pictures.
there's a termite nest, there's a crab and a fossil crab, there's a crawfish and a fossil crawfish, there is I forgot the name of the one with the longer arms, like a prawn-like animal,
right,
and a fossil one. And by the way, this is having a cool wife who took all the pictures of the fossils when we're at the museums, Debbie looked at me cross-eyed many times, she said, okay, I'll help you today. We'll go to the museum together and I'll help you. And so we get there at 9 o'clock in the morning. She said, what do you want me to do? I said, Debbie, I want you to photograph the fossils. And she'd say, oh, okay, what fossils do you want me to photograph? I said, I want you to photograph the entire museum. All the fossils that you can find. If there's a fossil, I want you to photograph, because I'm just pulling at straws at the beginning. I didn't know what we had, what was there. And so, sometimes you would shoot as a family, Debbie and I, the partners, 4,000 or 5,000 pictures in a day, and so then she would not ask me the next museum, what do you want me to do? she would be sure not to ask me. She would say, I'm going to be back at lunchtime. What are you going to be doing, Carl? No, she was great about it.
So was that a happy coincidence that you married a photographer, or did your research spark her interest in photography?
Yeah, we had zero experience on filming a television show. We had zero experience with cameras. I mean, just Polaroid, just stupid cameras,
Yeah.
And we had the need. And so we bought good cameras, and good lenses, but there's more to it than just good cameras, good lenses. And first museum got back from, I was so disappointed with our work because the fossils were only in focus on one part of the fossil, and so we went to our photographer friends. What'd we do wrong? Well, you need to set it on f/22 and put more light on it, and so over time, man, we got really good at photographing fossils where the whole fossil is perfectly lit, perfectly in focus, and it's a beautiful 48 megabyte picture, so that was all learned on the job. And
really,
yeah, that's all. And that's how we do it when we take on a new job anyway.
right.
You might go to college, but you're going to just basically learn your trade on the job. So
Yes.
we learned it, a lot of silly mistakes early on, but you got better and better at it, and people are surprised to hear that Debbie isn't a professional photographer and that she's not a professional videographer. Because she shot the shows,
That's right. Well, I'm shocked. I thought she was. I mean, the quality of the pictures, and you're shooting through glass.
Oh yeah,
as well.
Yeah, we got a trick for that. If you ever want to shoot through glass at a museum real quickly, you just take a off the shoe camera with a flash and you just shoot it from a different angle. You don't have to open the glass up, and it's perfect. You just got to have the flash off the camera and shoot it at a different angle. Boom, there you go. Set your camera at f/22 and you're good.
Good. So I take it it's worked out well for you, as both of you have traveled and researched together. You don't have to spend a lot of time apart.
Oh no, because one of the things is I'm type 1 diabetic, and I can't sleep alone. I don't want to sleep alone because of the risk. Never had a problem, but so we don't spend the night apart. And so, so it takes some negotiations, because I might say to her, Debbie, I think we need to go to Johannesburg. Johannesburg's such a beautiful city. It's an armpit, but no offense. But, or we need to go to Brussels. Same thing, downtown Brussels. Well, she learned then over time to negotiate. Well, I'll go to Brussels if we can stop over in Paris and we can go see the Eiffel Tower or whatever.
Right.
It's like, okay, deal. I'll negotiate. So every trip, Johannesburg, well, then we threw in a safari, and filmed on safari. So each trip there had to be something there, so it wasn't just total work.
Right.
Because when we get back home, we both had to go to our jobs. So it's like you got to have a little fun on your
all
trips.
work and no play. Yeah.
So Debbie had a lot of fun. She'd always take me out touring, and I think this is a waste of time. We're in Melbourne, we're here to see fossils, well, then see these beautiful things they had for the city center, so it was good for me, so I didn't get too caught up being a nerd.
So you said, just talking about the photography again, that there were like 500 plus in each book. Do you have any idea how many photographs and how much video footage you took that didn't, all told, because all of it obviously didn't get in there.
I think if I were just to guess, I would say 200,000 photographs now.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. And the video footage, I kept track of that for a while when it got up to 300 tapes, but now we're doing digital. So I would say, 600, 700 tapes equivalents, so it's a lot of material. In fact, it's so many terabytes. And one of my jobs is just to back everything up. So in case we had a house fire or a tornado, as I'm constantly making copies of everything and sending it to the different places for, your worst case scenario. So we have, I don't know, I'm going to just pull this out of the air, maybe 20 terabytes of information that we have to back up every week, so it's a lot of information.
That's a lot of information. And are you and Debbie finished with your travels and research?
Well, we are currently getting ready to release a new book to be announced later. I want to keep it secret.
Yeah.
So all I say is tune in later and search our name, but we have a really cool thing going on right now. And it's a continuation of this project. So I'll just leave it that. You can tune in later, huh?
Tune in later. Stay tuned, folks.
Yeah.
So addressing our audience, the theory of evolution, it's presented as unquestioned fact in our schools and universities and in the media. So I would encourage anyone who's willing to look at evolution with fresh eyes and an open mind to get hold of Dr. Werner's 2 books and DVDs, Evolution, The Grand Experiment, and Living Fossils, and the DVDs that accompany them, and come to your own conclusions. And Dr. Werner, where can people get hold of these resources?
If you just Google The Grand Experiment, or if you Google Dr. Carl Werner Evolution, they'll just pop up. They're pretty much, most retailers have them on their websites, So the title of the book is Evolution, The Grand Experiment. And there's a book and a video. And the second book is Evolution, Grand Experiment, Volume 2, Living Fossils.
Living Fossils. Very
And
good.
just for the reader, I just want to encourage them that these books are written for a non-scientist. And so these are written for someone like your neighbor, my neighbor, who is a great plumber or architect, who aren't scientists, but they take the book and read it cover to cover in 2.5 to 3 hours. It's a really quick read. Both books are 2.5 hours. And then you can watch the DVDs for an hour and you get it and make your own conclusion. And it's not like it's a long commitment. These books are very easy to read in a one setting. Maybe you wouldn't do it. A lot of people just read 1 5-page chapter a night, but you could read the whole thing in 2.5 hours and you're done, and you get it,
And I can verify that because I thoroughly enjoy, I've gone through them both at least 3 times because I just enjoy them so much. I enjoy the photography and I understand them. They're so clearly laid out. I really like the way they're laid out.
I'd like to give a plug for my writer. I am the worst writer in the world. And you could ask anybody in my family, they would know that. And yet this lady, her name is Carla Azara, and she transformed everything that I wrote, all the ideas, and transformed it for you, explaining each term, and she would say, get to a term which means this, and
Right.
I read my books and I say, these are great. Who wrote this? But Carla Azara is my other, big helper. Debbie couldn't do it without her. You wouldn't want to read my book if I had written it. But Carla, it's just a fun book to read. I mean,
It is
well written, and that's Carla Azara, not Carl Werner. Did that. So,
well, thank you, Carla. Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Dr. Werner, for being my guest today. Any final words?
Just keep an open mind. I know this is a hot button issue for a lot of the viewers, and that if you believe in evolution, you're squirming, you're mad. What is this guy talking about? I get that. But you know what? maybe it's time just to say, okay, why wouldn't I take a look at the other side? If I'm so confident and I know I'm right, I should be able to withstand someone giving me facts, and don't be so dug in that you become a hardhead, like my uncle in Chicago. I won't say his name, God bless his soul, but he was of one political party, and every time you go visit him, this party, it's the only party, he was so dug in, and I've seen that people, siblings of my, well, just family members
Mhm.
that are so dug in on a science topic, that's not a good idea. You should always be listening. My mom was my mom was a Democrat, my dad was a Republican, and we'd have dinner every night and they would be sharing their views. And that's how I grew up. I love that. They'd share their views, they disagreed, but they loved each other, so
Right,
I just think it's good to be well versed on what the other people are thinking, whether you agree or not, that's fine,
right.
but it's a good idea to become well versed what other people are thinking. Because why would a doctor not believe in evolution? That's a great question. Now I would be intrigued if I watched the show. I was like, why would why would he spend all that time going around the world to prove what we already know is true? That would intrigue me. What was it that hooked him? By the way, those 3 questions are in the second book. So I
Okay.
3 questions over a page. So you can go through that with me, the feelings that I was having and why I was having those. So yeah, get on board, get into the grand experiment, and you better hurry up too, because we are coming out with 2 more books right down the pike here. I don't know when they're going to come out, and they're going to be exciting, but you might as well get these done so you can get on to step 3 and 4 here. Okay.
Absolutely. What a great message to leave us with. I hope that you have put a stone in people's shoes to just make them stop and think and have that interest in investigating. So I want to thank you again for being with us. I look forward to seeing the results of your continued research. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to Looking at Science. See you
Thank you.
next time.
Good night.